at Roadmap, and today we're just going to review how to land a job in tech, and that's either with experience in the tech industry or without experience in the tech industry. So this is going to be very communal interactive, so if you have questions, we'll definitely get time for them. If you brought any burning questions, you can go ahead and drop them into the chat right now, just so that we know. We may cover them anyways, but it's always helpful to see. Now, I'm going to go ahead and double check that we're recording, and I'm going to share my screen. So as I mentioned, I'm the founder of Roadmap, and I've been in tech and education for 20 years. I previously co-founded Almanac, which is now valued at 120 million, and now I'm here with all of you and all of us so that we can launch our careers in tech. Oops. We have specifically created a roadmap for top performers to break into tech, either with or without experience. And I like to stress this because I know we have people today who have done coding boot camps, people today who are pivoting from financial into fintech. What it takes to succeed in tech are 3 behaviors. You will do what it takes to get the job done. You are a problem solver, and you have a learning mindset. Notice that these 3 behaviors are extremely broad. So whatever your unique approach to problem solving is, it doesn't really matter if it's through relationships, if it's through deep analysis, if it's through optimizing processes. If you are that person who will do what it takes and can get obsessed with the problem that you're solving, sort of like figuring out a puzzle and you don't want to let it go, and you're constantly learning and looking to learn, then that's what it takes to succeed. We know this because in our community at Roadmap, we have helped, it's now 161 people land jobs, many with experience and many with 0. People pivoting. Elena was a wine director. She broke into customer success in 10 weeks, and then she was promoted in 8 months. 0 experience in customer success, but she had those 3 behaviors, right? So, oh, and I also like to tell the story of Mary Rose because this is particularly interesting. A lot of us just wind up stuck in the workforce. She got laid off from a program coordinator role and wound up rating audiovisual equipment. And in 12 weeks, she was hired as a program manager at Harvard Business School's Entrepreneurs Program with a 45.8% salary increase. So the real reason that I do this, and I'm here with all of you, is because I think it's absolutely absurd that someone like Mary Rose was rating audiovisual equipment for 4 years. So now she is fully engaged in her own career and also contributing at her fullest capacity. And that's my goal for all of us, to really figure out where we want to go and then just get there as soon as possible. So we have a 10-week process that we follow. The first 2 weeks, we really are working on our career assets. I say 2 weeks. That said, it usually takes most of us up to 5 or 6 weeks to get all of them done. But the reason why I say 2 weeks is because you can actually start networking before you have a resume perfect, before your LinkedIn profile is optimized. The true process for landing a job is to go out and talk to people. There are some very specific tactics to have those conversations and build relationships so that you can get referrals to job interviews. Then from those referrals, you get to your phone screen. Each of what is needed at each of these stages is very different. It's a unique set of best practices. So the one mindset that I always say is, don't ever think about your job search as I'm looking to land a job. First, think about it as, oh, I'm looking to talk to people in my target role or who could help me determine my target role. Oh, now that I'm starting to talk to people, I'm going to work on getting referrals from those people to jobs. Then I'm going to master how to ace the phone screen interview. In the phone screen interview, you go into hiring manager interviews and team interviews. Very specific tactics for acing each of those. And again, at each step, you're thinking, okay, and what does it now take to ace the phone screen interview, ace the hiring manager interview, ace the team interviews, ace the final interviews if you're interviewing for a role that has an additional round, and then what does it take to close and negotiate the offer? So this is what the process looks like. I'm gonna stop there and see if we have any questions. And also just kind of get a feel for how it relates to what you are already doing. Kaylin, I think that's how you pronounce it. I didn't get a chance to hear from you. Very curious what you're looking for next and if this process resonates with you.
Yeah, you did pronounce the name right, so thank you. But yeah, so right now I'm in a stage where the company that I work for is about to go through a sale where the team is not going to be taken on with the in the acquisition, and so I, for the first time in quite a few years, am embarking on a job search after really loving the company I have been working for, and it's a little bit daunting because I haven't updated my resume or my LinkedIn fully in quite a few years. Like, have been very, dedicated to and committed to this company and growing it. So, yeah, I mean, I think just having clear, concrete steps and finding ways to kind of tell the narrative of what I find, like with the resume, the scariest part is like, how do I pack, 5 years of growing a company into a couple bullet points? Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And let's take a look at how we would do that. So actually we'll go back to our process here. You're right, you do need a narrative. In fact, let's just kind of quickly review all of the things that you need to be really successful at this process. You need the resume. You also need your target job titles or transferable job titles, depending on whether or not you're pivoting. But you need to know where you're going and why. You also need to have 5 really strong key result statements that give us evidence that those job titles that you're targeting are job titles that you can perform. They don't have to be job titles that you have ever held, right? But the actual things that you achieved show that you would be able to achieve the duties of the new role. So your story is a big piece of all of this too. Your resume is actually sort of the last thing that you would develop, but I know it's the most important for everyone, so we always put it at the front here. Yes, we recognize the resume. You also need those target job titles. You need key results to say that I am qualified for these job titles, and then you need that high-level story. Let's take a look at a story that worked for one of our community members, Carla White. She had 0 experience. You can all see that she was just, she was a teacher. She was not even trying to hide it. She did not even in her job search process get to the point where she really got to optimize her profile on LinkedIn. So she went from teaching and in 10 weeks to customer experience role at a startup based in San Francisco. And her narrative that we developed in the program looked like this. And of course, screen share and LinkedIn loading is taking forever. Ah, here we go. Okay. So this is a narrative for someone who was a teacher pivoting into customer experience. She did not even know exactly which role she would get. Hi, I'm Carla, and I analyze data to build and improve educational and training programs. So for everyone who is pivoting, note that she doesn't say, hi, I'm Carla and I'm a teacher looking to break into tech. That would not actually get the attention of someone in tech who could hire you. I've been in the education management industry for 10 years. In 3 months, with the help of my analysis tool, 79% of students were scoring a solid 2, up from 58% at the beginning of the school year. Then she goes on to give a personal statement about what she believes in and why she does this, and then her, what's coming next, look forward to becoming even more impactful as it pertains to developing people and programs. She didn't even get specific about what she was looking for. She didn't have to, because she had some very specific things in here. Analyze data, improve educational training programs, and then that key result statement. So this is a model that all of us can kind of adapt for ourselves. We want to give someone a little bit of context into what value we add. And most importantly, we really, really want to give them a key result statement. And it says, like, oh, if I wasn't sure what you could do at my company, oh, that's what you can do. You can take a community and you can help them improve something in a very short amount of time, and you do it with data analysis and probably teaching methodology. Okay, great. This is an example of a narrative. It's going to be a little bit more formal when it goes on your resume. This narrative right here landed Carla 8 networking calls, 4 interviews, and then eventually led to 2 job offers. Of course, it wasn't the narrative, right, alone. The narrative helps you do a couple of things, and let's just break down where that comes into the process. So that narrative is usually the upfront to help you land networking calls. And then once you have it written, you want it everywhere. It is true that it goes on your resume, but your resume, just to break that down, also only exists to help you land networking calls and referrals. I like to say this because I hear so many people who show up and they say, oh, I had 5 phone screens in the last 6 months and everyone rejected me. What's wrong with my resume? Well, wait a minute. Why would you think there's anything wrong with your resume if you had an interview and got rejected? Someone saw your resume and said, I want to interview you, and then you got there and you didn't get the job. They weren't looking at a resume, they were looking at you. So what happens in this phone screen, right? So your resume, I always say people spend way too much time and money on resumes. They're important, but the way that we optimize them for tech is actually takes a lot of work, but it's a very simple concept. Before I go on, I want to find out how everyone feels about this just premise that your narrative is actually 5 times more important than your resume. It's going to land you those calls and then those referrals. We saw the story of Carla. We also have 161 people in the roadmap community that we could talk about who've done similar things. And your resume just plays that small role. So curious how everyone is feeling about resume and narratives who's been on the job search. Lauren, I know you're looking to pivot. Any thoughts on the role of your resume?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely placed a lot of emphasis on it in the past, so this is a good reminder to not spend as much time on that. I did have a question about where do you suggest we would put these networking blurbs? Just kind of on like LinkedIn and like Slack channels, things like that?
Yeah, we can take a little bit of a deeper dive into that piece, because that is sort of how we get the whole flywheel going. So the full like end-to-end job search process that our cohorts follow to get these great results. Can you all see my screen, the grid here? Yeah, we can simplify it and say it comes down to landing networking calls, converting them into referrals, acing phone screens, knowing the 5 questions they're going to ask and the best way to answer each question, each interview stage, all the way through the offer. Your networking blurb is one piece of your networking strategy. Once you have it, you can customize it for a lot of different formats, but consider that your job when you're looking for a job is to be networking all week, every week. You're definitely going to post your networking blurb on LinkedIn. You want to join 10 communities where people are actively engaging, talking to each other. This can be Slack, Discord, Facebook, LinkedIn groups, any active community where you see people working together and collaborating. Yeah, go ahead, Kurt.
Yeah, I had a quick question. So I'm new to this concept. I saw it in one of the Slack channels I'm in for a professional organization, Picadilla. And I was just curious, like I noticed in the blurb that you just showed there were a lot of numbers that were thrown there. And kind of in pitching for companies and gaining people's backing for different things, I've always been told and found experience that nothing kills a story like, numbers. And so how does that reconcile with this approach? It's our stories that people remember. No one ever remembers how many people that you did this or that. It's how you did that. I've always thought, and I wanted to talk or see your perspective on that.
Yeah, I think that's such an important distinction. Storytelling for job search versus storytelling for other mediums, right? So remember that when you're in the job market, everyone who can help you get a job, they have to do a lot of work to qualify you for that job. Can you see my screen? Yeah, they have to do a lot of work to qualify you for that job. It is true that your personal deep story could be enough to make someone remember you. But if I talk to you today and you tell me this really passionate story about, we had someone in the community who wanted to get into cybersecurity because her family was scammed early in her life and it impacted them financially for, like 10 years. And she was pivoting and she had zero experience. And I could go and I could call a bunch of recruiters and hiring managers that I know and say, oh, you've got to talk. I know she has zero experience, but she has this thing and she pivoted. But then if I go and I give them one key result, they'll want to talk to her. So yes, you're right. Humans remember stories. However, because everyone involved in the hiring process knows that it's going to be hard to get anyone in front of a hiring manager and that it's a process based on rejection, we found that putting those numbers in there right away to enhance the personal story will make you memorable in a way that someone wants to go and refer you right away.
That's great. Thank you for that. And just one quick follow-up question. I promise not to dominate the time here. So what I heard is that from you is that using the numbers is important to get the foot in the door, but then maybe we shift into more of a storytelling mode to support that when we have these conversations, or do you still keep pounding home those metrics and KPIs that you've been hitting? How does that work for you?
Yeah. All right. I mean, let's real talk here for a moment. And just so you all know, we kind of reviewed the full process and there are different areas that we can dive into. So what you're really getting at, Kurt, is helpful for all of us. The roadmap methodology is designed for the most extreme cases in job search. People join us who have faced a lot of discrimination or who had major career gaps, or just whatever the situation was, something was keeping them back in their job search and making it more difficult than, say, the average person's job search. So we have designed our process for the most extreme cases, the most difficult times to land a job. And because of that, we do use the key results method. So every step and stage is backed by key results. Because it's designed for extreme cases, it works extremely well for everyone. If an interviewer asks you a standard behavioral question like, hey, what tools do you use to stay focused on long projects? And you just answer literally, oh, Slack and Asana are my favorite tools and here's how I use them. Versus, oh, actually, I was on a recent project where I increased retention rate by 30% doing these tactics, and to maintain focus, this is what my team and I used. That's just a different experience altogether. So you actually will stand out from other candidates. You will give the interviewer what they need right away. Consider that it is a process based on rejection. Everyone who is participating knows that whether consciously or not, they actually are a person who has fail criteria, success criteria, and offer criteria. This is tricky because it might be easy to avoid someone's fail criteria, but we might hit a hiring manager's success criteria all the way through and never actually fall into offer criteria. And it turned out all along we were the second best candidate, right? Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering, what would you suggest to people a bit earlier in their career that don't have the numbers? What do you suggest they do in that situation? Because my particular case, like, yes, I do have experience, but we just recently launched our website, so we don't really have any metrics to go on at this point when it comes to when it comes to telling your story.
Yeah. First of all, let's just take a quick show of hands or in the chat. How many of us feel like it's going to be difficult to get those numbers? Yeah. Okay. So the one thing that I can tell you is that everyone who comes into our program asks a question at some point. Oh, but how do you handle it if I'm that person who doesn't have numbers? Jimmy was one of those people. It's like, well, I don't have any experience in product marketing. I don't have any numbers. And then well, it turned out 200 plus partnerships, grew local viewership to 5,000. So what we actually do together during our first couple of weeks of the program, where we're creating those career assets, you know, whether you're the person who gets them all checked off by week 2, or you're still working on a resume and LinkedIn into weeks 3 and 4, it doesn't matter. You're actually learning a new way of thinking, which is this key results method. Everything can be quantified. So Brian, even for this, I would want to know, what is the intended impact? If the impact isn't there yet, so how many users are intended to be reached? I'd want to know more about the business, the website, the founder behind it that you're working with, and we will absolutely find that story with numbers. I have 100% conviction of that. So the short answer is you do have numbers and you'll find them. And I will say, for some of us who are early in career and we're like, well, yeah, I was in college. Those numbers can be more visionary and you can refer to projects. And if you're earlier in your career, then it's sort of expected. But if you're a career pivoter and you've still been in the workforce for a long time, then we want to see the numbers in your previous job titles. It doesn't actually matter if they're related to the new one or not. So that's something else to keep in mind. Great questions. I love how attuned everyone is to this. I mean, it's maybe for some of you, it's not a new process and you've kind of known, gosh, I have to have all these key result statements just to get the resume out the door. And now we're here and we don't have to spend as much time on the resume. Well, the key result statements, those metrics that go on your resume, they actually follow you for your entire career. So the resume is not as important, but those key result statements are, and they are going to appear on your resume and your LinkedIn profile. And they are also going to form your interview strategy once you get to that point. Great questions today. And just to kind of reel it all in, because we're kind of jumping around the process, which is what we do, especially job search isn't linear. We can make it look like a linear process, but we all wind up all over the place and doing 5 things at once, right? But just to bring it back, we're going to talk to people. We're going to get referrals. We're going to land phone screens. We're going to learn how to ace those phone screens. Then we're going to get to the hiring manager interviews, the team interviews, the final interviews, the offer. That's the job search process. Networking is its own little process on top of that. Does mean putting yourself out there. You are posting your blurb in like 10 different communities, but you're also doing very specific types of outreach to leaders, recruiters, and employees, past colleagues, replying to people who are posting about jobs, and attending an event. These are the networking tactics that we recommend. So that's our process. And the deliverables that you need to make it a really solid process are those resume, target job titles, key results, and your story. Yeah. Any other questions on these deliverables or the process itself? And we are offering these deliverables to all of you, custom built by us with our experience working with our community of 7,000 people and 161 new jobs. That's just because so few of the 7,000 people actually say yes to this 10-week challenge, because it is challenging. The new job accelerator is free. And so you can all join. That's also on our website. If you go to coaching and new job accelerator, you can come and join this cohort. We're now making it an 8-week cohort since we're offering to do the career tools for you. And regardless of how you conduct your job search, just know that the most important thing is having key results and talking to people. And the combination of those 2 things is going to get things going pretty quickly. So apology, looks like my screen is kind of doing a little hiccup there. I'm going to stop sharing. Great questions today, and I want to make sure that if anyone came in with burning questions that we didn't get a chance to new job include the 4 deliverables. So new job accelerator, okay, is free. And the 4 deliverables are, there are 2 payment plans. You can pay upfront $417, or you can do a subscription to pay it off the full price over the course of the year.
Yeah, I had a question about that. I was just a little confused on the difference between the career roadmap and the new job accelerator. It sounds like one is free and one there's a fee.
Yes, New Job Accelerator, join us starting January 23rd. We are meeting once a week to conduct the job search process together. We've been doing this for the past year with cohorts. It's why we have all of these great success stories. We've used to charge for the cohort experience. We've gotten feedback from our community that the hardest thing for them throughout was trying to get their deliverables done. And they'd rather just pay us to do the deliverables, and then they do the mindset, the behavior, and actually go out and do the networking. So, okay, great. Thank you for the feedback. And so, yeah, we kind of revised it this year. The workshops will be open, sign up, kicking off January 23rd. If you are like most of our community, where the hardest part is getting out there and networking while worrying about your resume, your job titles, the key results, and that narrative, that's where we now come in with the help. So the total cost is $695. You can get it at a 40% discount, $417. Or finding a job is hard, and it often means that we sometimes don't have the finances for a few $100s up front. No problem. You can subscribe and pay it over the course of 12 months. So, yeah. What I can say, and big thank you to all of the 161 people who landed jobs with us. I wish that I could have had their feedback beforehand to simplify this sooner for all of us. These materials are hard to do the first time because there's so much mindset to get into that key results thinking. So we want all of you to be able to get into that thinking without stressing about these particular deliverables every week. We would rather you practice the networking calls, practice the interviews, practice telling the stories, and really get into the mindset. So that's a little bit of the thinking behind it and the big change. Hold on a second. So you provide it to the New Job Accelerator. Yes, I can. Let me grab that. New Job Accelerator. Here is the link. Okay. Great questions. And any other questions about job search or career challenges that we didn't get a chance to cover? Want to make sure that if we didn't, oh yeah, Katya.
I was just wondering about the process for getting those 4 deliverables. Does that, I know because there was a lot of discussions in the cohort. So to get those deliverables and the key results, what's the process that one would go through with you guys?
Yeah, that is such a great question. So we will give you a survey to take. So it's a brief survey, maybe takes about 10 minutes, where we'll also get the current version of your resume, your LinkedIn profile. We'll ask you questions about your work history. Then we start working on deliverables for your customer roadmap. We may send follow-up questions or schedule a 20-minute call with you. We may not need to. Just depends on the state of your deliverables and what we learn in the survey about you. And then, yes, we do give you the full strategy to land a job with using those deliverables. Yeah, does that answer your question, Katya? Some of the questions in the survey are like, what do people ask you for help with the most often? And we want you to be really honest and just actually tell us what's going on, because it takes us, and we'll ask why, and we'll ask like several questions like that to get an idea of who you are, what your strengths are. Some of the reasons why people don't know this, like if you were to go and search for common human skills that a lot of us might have, like empathy, relationship building, good listener, if you were to go to enter those into LinkedIn and also enter Google and search by people, you would start to see, oh my gosh, here are all these people at Google who talk about the skills that I naturally have, and oh, here are their job titles in tech. So those things that make you good at whatever you do that you don't think are special, they're probably really, really special. And so we'll just ask you these simple questions, and we want the honest answers. Like, what would you really do if someone wanted to pay you $1 million salary to do any full-time job on the market right now? Right? Not to just go sit on an island, because that answer won't help us. But so we'll ask you things like that. And we just, from working with, so we say 161 people who landed jobs. There are 205 total. Not everyone landed a job. Usually they self-selected out of the process. By week 3 or 4, decided that it was too much, that it wasn't for them. So this is one of the other reasons why we're offering this to do the assets. But now that we've studied all the data from everyone who was successful and everyone who wasn't, we're really good at understanding what are those qualities that you have that are going to unlock those behaviors of a top performer, and getting them into these formats that tell your story to everyone who's hiring in tech. So, yeah. Okay, and I know we're at time. These sessions are designed to be a half hour so that those of us in our workday can get